Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Panda Bennett, and today we are joined by Hannah, the Garnet Witch, and the creator of the Garnet Witch Tarot. And I could not be more excited. I absolutely love this deck. I couldn't celebrate it hard enough. So I'm so excited. I'm so glad you could be here today.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited for this. Oh my goodness.
So just go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us, I need to know everything about you. Like I do these interviews usually for other people, like to bring decks to people and to help celebrate indie creators, but like this interview is for me.
Oh my God. So blessed. My name is Hannah. I've been an artist now for about 5 years. I actually used to be a stockbroker.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's my favorite story to tell because I love people's reaction. I hated it. Oh my goodness. Just could not stand it. And I used to sit at my desk and draw all day long, constantly. I would be talking to customers and I would have my sketch pad out and I would be drawing. And when I quit my job, actually, my husband and I met at work together and we made the decision to quit our jobs and both pursue artistic paths.
That's amazing. Like, how exciting.
It was definitely a jump into uncharted waters, but it's been just a love affair of an adventure ever since.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, so do you want to talk about like your witchcraft journey or like your spiritual journey or like how you got to creating a tarot deck?
Absolutely. So I feel very blessed. I was actually born into a family of witches. I know that's not very common. My mom is the most amazing green witch. Honestly, can grow anything she touches. I did not inherit this. I cannot grow any plants. But she just, she really wanted her children from a really young age to have this as a part of their life and as a part of their path. And it was a really important part of my path for a really long time until I kind of went through something life-changing and it stopped for a while. And then a couple of years ago, my husband and I are talking, and I start talking about witchcraft and how much I miss it and how important it was for me. And he was like, that's interesting. And he's a very scholarly individual. So he starts looking into it and he starts discovering his path. He's more of a druid-esque witch than I am, but he started doing a lot of research and learning about it. I was so excited because I could finally share all this knowledge that I had. And we ended up actually starting a coven in our local area together, which was such a wonderful experience for ourselves and our group. And then my art kind of started it had started being integrated into my witchcraft. So we would sit at the coven meetings and I would draw. I always have a sketch pad in my hands. And then I started talking about how I really miss doing tarot. One of the witches in our coven, who's also a very dear friend of mine, she would do tarot readings every time we would meet. And I was like, man, I miss tarot.
I'm like choking on nothing.
No, you're
oh my
okay.
Gosh, that's so embarrassing.
Oh, don't even worry. I choke on air all the time.
Oh my gosh. Don't mind me. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's a good time to take a sip of tea.
I love your teacup, by the way. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
I collect teacups. Like I love teacups. I'm always like thrifting teacups and I come home with weird teacups. My husband's like, where are you going to put that one? I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like
I needed it. I know. I would have a much better collection, but I'm a very clumsy person. And I'm constantly breaking them. And these are the only one. This is the one I haven't broken yet. So I love it. But I was missing tarot. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go find myself a tarot deck. And I could not, for the life of me, find one that I connected with. Which was probably, you know, the universe telling me that I just needed to make my own. And I just started kind of leaning towards tarot-esque art, but I didn't officially start to make my own until my husband and I, we play video games together, which is so cheesy. But I'm very bad at video games and he's very good. So I tell him what to do and he does that. And we were playing Hellblade. I don't know if you've ever seen it or played it. It's this amazing game about Norse mythology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Oh my gosh. And there's this level in it of these gates with a deer skull hanging in front of it. And if you look at it from one direction, it's a portal into one area. And if you go from it from the other direction, it changes. And I was like, oh, you know, the death card is about, and then it just clicked. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this now. And I ended up drawing the first card, which is the death card, out of my deck.
The death card is my favorite card. Like, it's like, I always check the death card in every deck that I get, and that kind of determines like whether I like that deck or not. But it's my favorite card, and I always get so excited. You know, of course, people that are new to tarot are always so afraid of the death card, and I love that card. It's so refreshing. It has such like a good, I don't know, like energy. Like, we're just, yeah.
It's such an important card to get because it really represents that change, that validation of change. I can't stand it in modern media when somebody pulls the death card in a movie and they're like, you're going to die.
You'll be dead in 2 days. Yeah.
Like, all right, guys, this isn't the phone call from The Ring. Like,
right? Yes, you've actually been dead for some time. You just don't know. Like, that's what this card means.
Don't know it. You're a ghost. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that was kind of what started it. And I really drew the deck for myself. I was really just going to make my own tarot deck. You know, I was going to figure out how to get it printed but then I started telling my friends and family about it, and I started telling the witches in our coven about it, and everyone was just like, yes, when can we get one? Like, it wasn't even a question. They were like, okay, and you're going to be done when? Which was really intimidating because I had never taken on a project like this before. It was, and 70, mind you, I am a hand-drawn artist. So I was going to ask
how long did those take? How long did it take you?
A year.
Did it really? I mean, exactly. You can see like all of the pencil work. This is my favorite card too. The Lovers, the Witch and the Moon. I just like, that's so beautiful. But you can see all the pencil strokes and everything. I'm just like, gosh, the energy, and like, there's definitely a labor of love. Like, everything that went into this, the time. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I'm so appreciative that you see that, because it was, each card for me is connected to a really interesting memory. And some of them are like, I made that lover's card while I was sitting on my bed and watching The Office, right? Like, so, but I remember that every time I see that card. And then this one, actually, the Three of Pentacles, I actually made that one while one of my best friends and I were on a road trip together, and we were sitting in the hotel lobby, and I was drawing that specific card. Like, each card just has such a, it's crazy that I can look at that card and I can draw up that exact memory of when I drew it.
That's so beautiful. Like, I could just feel like when I saw the deck, first of all, I just feel like there's not anything out there like this deck. Like, there's just not even close. Like, you see some decks that are similar, but I wasn't finding anything. So like, I have probably, don't tell my husband, but probably like 500 decks. And I like, so like, there's the Everyday Witch Tarot and, you know, stuff like that. That's like kind of it's kind of like cartoony, you know what I mean? And I have that deck and I love that deck, but to me, I don't know how to explain it. People are always like, oh, I really like the love and light decks. And I'm like, well, I'm not really a love and light person, but I don't know what the tagline is. Is it dark and creepy, or like spirit and shadow, or I'm more dark and divine? Like I couldn't really come up with like what it was, but this deck is what it is. Like that's what I was looking for. So when I came across this, it was like, I really hate labels. I really, but if I had to, I would say I'm probably like eclectic green witchcraft with like focus on the moon, probably. But so like this took like my love of nature and then witchcraft and then tarot and like put it all together in like a more witchy, darker, like the readings aren't dark, but like the aesthetic, you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah, it was just so perfect. There's nothing else out there that I've seen like this. Like it's just wonderful.
Thank you so much. It is so great to hear, because I always describe this deck as unique. Because honestly, I'm always like, what do you mean you're like a dark person? Because I'm like so bubbly when I talk to people.
Right.
But I collect dead things. I don't know if you can see, I have like a deer skull in the background here. Like, I have a real love for the obscure, for the kind of taboo places in our society. I've always fit more into that. And I think that as witches, we tend to find ourselves in that place often, and I couldn't make a bubbly, colorful deck. If you were to look at my wardrobe, it's black.
Mine too. Yeah, it's all black.
So I've never really been drawn to colors, to a lot of like fantasticalness, if that is even a word. But I've always loved kind of the unique and obscure and mystical. That's kind of the vibe that I went for with this deck. And it just really naturally flowed.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I just each card that I pulled, I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I was telling my husband, I'm like, but look, but there's dead things, and wait, there's more, and the moon. And I was like, and look at these witches, and the magician looks like she could just control the universe. Look at how magical she looks. Like, look how powerful she looks. Yeah, oh my gosh, I could rave over it forever. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much. It's so funny that you do that with your husband, because that's what I did during the artwork. I would like finish a piece and I would run into my husband's office and I would be like, look at what I made. And he, of course, was always very proud. And I really appreciated him going on this journey. He was not on the journey with me, but he was kind of next to me during it. And his critique helped a lot, because he's a very honest person. So that there wasn't a lot of like, oh, it's perfect. Oh, it's wonderful. I love it. It would be like, why is that out of proportion? Or put this here. And then I would actually have to like, mind you, I'm a Capricorn. I don't take critique very well. So at first I would be like, fine. And like walk away. And then I would stare at the artwork and I would realize, okay, no, he's right. There's a weird perspective. Or yeah, actually, this doesn't really match with the meaning that I was going for. I'm going to kind of alter it in this way. So I was really appreciative of that, and also appreciative of his patience, of me just kind of being like, well, fine, if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that sounds like me. Like I asked my husband, I'm like, okay, so what do you think of this? And he'll be like, well, and I'll be like, who was asking you? Like, just forget it.
Your opinion does not matter here. Yeah. But it does.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I wish that we were closer. I feel like we would be best friends. Like I also play video games with my husband, but I'm terrible. So my husband is like a total nerd. He is a software engineer. So like he does all the beep boops. I can barely turn the computer on, but so like we play.
Yeah, my husband's a programmer. That's what's so
funny. Yes. And yeah, so he does coding and that kind of stuff. And but so he loves to play video games. Like we just got a game where like you're just an asshole goose. Like you run around and you're like this goose and you chase people. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So well, I'm like terrible I'm terrible at video games, but we play these different games together, and we also really like scary movies or like the scarier games. Like, oh gosh, I
Yes.
can't think. There's one where like you go to this ship in outer space, and there's like the zombie virus that like took the crew and whatever. But like, yeah, so we're
Yeah.
kind of the same way. And he's very like, he critiques things because like I'll get so far ahead of myself because I'm excited, and he's very like grounded and like mellow, and he'll be like, well, maybe you could look at it like this or those kind of things. Yeah, definitely.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And it's so funny because we love those creepy games, and that's what got us onto playing Hellblade. So I highly
We're
suggest-
gonna look it up like when we get done here. Like we'll probably be playing it too.
I always have to give a disclaimer. It does kind of deal with mental health issues. And there were totally moments during that game where I kind of had to be like, okay, can we turn it off? Let's watch SpongeBob for like 15 minutes. Like I need to reset. But it's just a brilliant game. Yeah. So.
I'll have to definitely check it out. I'm so excited. We just got we got the Goose Game, and then we got one that was gosh, who is it about? It's about one of the gods. I'm not gonna be able to remember. But I'm so terrible with the video game thing. But yeah,
I do the exact
anyways.
same thing. I actually had to look up and write. I have a little note thing here. The name Hellblade for that video game, because every time I try to tell this story, if my husband is next to me, I'm like, what was that game called? Because I don't remember. And otherwise I'm like, oh, but there's this game and there's this thing and it's wonderful. And I don't remember the name.
What I just did, like right there. Yeah, that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm actually playing this game, which is one of my first like independent playthroughs. It's a early access game. It's called Ooblets. I highly suggest you give it a try. It is the cutest game I think that has ever existed. You just run around and farm and catch these adorable little monsters and like live your best life in the game.
Okay. I will definitely check it out. I feel like I could do that. Like,
and it's super easy. And it's kind of, so it's a little reminiscent of like Pokemon, where your little monsters, you kind of have to catch them.
Okay.
But in order to catch them instead of a battle, it's a dance battle.
Okay, I'm on board.
I know.
That sounds amazing.
Oh my gosh. So I love that so much. I do have to say, I'm feeling such a connection as we're talking right now. Like this is,
I know.
wonderful. Oh my goodness.
Well, and when I saw the deck, like I was like, okay, this is for me. But I even told my husband, like when I took the deck out of the package, I said, just holding it in my hand, like the way that it felt, the size of the cards, like holding it, I felt such energy and like connection. And I was absolutely blown away. Like I didn't think that I could like it any more than when I saw it, but like holding it in my hand and going through every card, because I couldn't find, like, you can't see all the cards, and I couldn't find them anywhere. Like I went to all my different groups and my card groups and this and that, and I couldn't find that anybody had put up all the rest of the cards. And so there was a lot of them that I hadn't seen, and I was just blown away by like how much deeper the connection got for this deck. Like this is definitely like gonna be my go-to. It's just, it puts all those things together for me, and the aesthetic is absolutely perfect, Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so glad to hear that you liked like the size of it, the size of the cards. I spent it was honestly like the whole time that I was drawing the deck, anytime a friend of mine would bring out a tarot deck, I was like, can I hold it? Can I just look at it? Can I shuffle it real quick? Because it was like a scientist trying to figure out like, what is the perfect measurement? Because I wanted to make sure that they were big enough to make an impression. Because I was thinking about the witches who are going to be reading for other people. You really want an impressionable deck, right?
Yes.
And I needed it to be easy to shuffle. I don't have big hands, so like these giant decks, I can never shuffle them. So I was like, okay, so I need to make sure that the size is perfect for, anybody from like big hands to shuffle to like smaller hands to shuffle. And I would just play with friends' decks. Obviously, always get permission before you play with somebody else's deck. For those watching, because
don't be touching strangers' things.
Please don't go take somebody's deck and start using it. These are people people that I love dearly and were so open and willing to share the decks. And I was so appreciative of that. And it was like hunting down the perfect size. It was almost like, you know how impossible it is to find the perfect bra size. It was kind of like that. Like I was hunting down the perfect size for the tarot deck.
Well, and do you guys ever have you ever seen the show Archer?
I've watched a few episodes, but I've never gotten really into it.
Okay, well, from that show, like that sarcastic, like, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what my husband and I have, and we watch that show, but I have really big hands. And so like from that show, he's always like, okay, Truckosaurus pause. Like, so I have like, but yeah, no, it's for anybody, no matter what size your hands are, it's a perfect size to shuffle, but then it has such a presence laid out on the table, because that's something that's very big for me, because like my smaller size decks, like I have some decks that are like, this is a little bit smaller than traditional like playing card size, but like if I'm going to sit at a table with just another person, I like having my bigger cards, because then, you know, they can see and they have a nice presence like laid out on the table, especially if there's nothing else, if it's just me and the cards. And so these have like the perfect presence. And then I like, I really don't like when decks are gilded, but I really like that this is left bare like this, because something about it and something about the feeling, it just feels very natural and earthy, like when I hold it, like just very, I don't know, like very kind of raw or something. I don't know.
I really kind of didn't want, I thought about that, you know, I thought about gilding, I thought about maybe doing some holographic effects and stuff, but it just didn't suit the deck. The deck is really meant to be kind of a witch's connection with their self and a witch's connection with nature. I also, a really raw piece of the deck is some of the traumatic stuff I've been through in my past has led me to kind of have to rediscover myself like sexually. And that was kind of a part of this deck. It was kind of a part of rediscovering my body, rediscovering you know, the beauty in others. And I think it shows, there's a lot of naked people in this deck.
It's very tasteful though. And I definitely appreciate it. And it's so beautiful. Like how has this helped you like healing wise, like creating this deck and then putting it out in the world?
Yeah, so a really interesting thing happened after. I think the most healing thing, there was a lot of healing through the whole deck, which was really wonderful and really important. But I tried to publish the deck through an online like deck publisher, which I had been recommended, and I think they put out great products, so it's really nothing against them, but they said they couldn't publish my deck because of the nudity. And that was, it's so weird to say, but it was actually devastating.
I bet.
It was really difficult to work through. And so the art actually sat for about 6 months after that. I didn't pursue it. I really struggled with it. It also doesn't help that it was kind of at the beginning of the pandemic, everything was going on. So it really hit me hard. And there was a lot of, I felt embarrassed. About the art. I know, but I think it's healthy to admit that, to go, I had a real weakness in that moment. And I ended up really embracing that weakness and going like, okay, so clearly I'm not going to try any other online forums to print decks. Right. Where else can I go? You know, where is my community? And it turns out we had a local printer here. And I reached out to them. And first thing in, like, I think the second line in the email I sent them was like, by the way, this has nudity, and if you're not okay with it, that's okay.
Yeah.
And they emailed me back almost immediately, and they were like, oh, we've never done a tarot deck. We don't care about nudity. We'll totally print your deck. And I've just been with them this whole time. And
yes.
Yeah, right?
Oh my gosh.
I like, it really taught me about kind of unabashedly accepting those pieces of yourself, and then finding your community that also embraces that, you know,
So
because
that's really amazing. I feel like we're probably the same. Like, would you agree? So like I usually, because I'm running so far ahead of something, especially if I'm working on a project. So like
yeah,
if I had my like mindset that like, okay, now I've got all this art done and then I'm going to print it on GameCraft or make playing cards or whatever, and that
yeah,
fell through for me, like because I set something up in my mind ahead of time. I do this all the time, and then when it doesn't play out like that, I'm like devastated, I'm thrown off track, and then I'm just like throw all the cards in the air and like, well, I'm done, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Because it, yeah.
exactly. So my husband and I have identified it as I have a need for a checklist, and it's a very important need. And ever since I've identified it, I just completely own it. So there are moments where I'll be in the middle, even like a daily checklist, right? I'll be in the middle of something and someone will bother me, and I'll just be like, I'm sorry, you're further down on the checklist, so you just have to wait. I mean, I say it nicer than that. Like,
Right.
yeah, I just embrace that, yes, there is a checklist. And if that checklist gets disturbed in any way, especially with such a big project, with putting so much of myself into it, it was really like, okay, fine. Nope, I'm done. You know, if nobody's going to like it, then whatever, which clearly was
Yeah.
the case. But that was kind of that, like, it was that way of dealing with that hurt. You know,
Yeah.
it hurt to have that kind of rejection that I didn't expect.
Right.
And I, after kind of thinking about it and process, like it took me a while to process. I understand it, you know, and I've had a couple other instances where somebody wasn't able to buy the deck because of the nudity, you know, and I'm okay. I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with that. But it took that moment of almost that rejection to understand that I can be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I see, like, do you follow like Indie Deck Review on Instagram?
I don't actually know.
Okay, so they review, I mean, they're like a big name that reviews a lot of decks. And
Yeah.
so many decks that we see, especially probably in the last, well, God, I mean, no, just forever. I mean, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking of like Daughters of the Moon, you know, that was like a 1975, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure on the date, but I mean, it's an older deck, but I mean, it had nudity, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, like, but especially now, like, we just see it all the time. But I was looking at a deck, I don't even remember which one, but on Amazon, and I scrolled to the bottom to the reviews because I always read through the reviews. The very first one, this lady was just like all caps, and she's like, "This deck has nudity. I'm giving it 1 star." And I was just like, really, Karen, like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
all the decks like in 2021, like what doesn't have nudity? And we all
Yeah.
have bodies. Like I just
Well, and I always love to bring up, it has now become my favorite thing when I talk about this is the Rider-Waite deck has nudity. So what are we
yeah,
getting up, like the
yeah,
lovers, they're naked. So like, why
yeah.
are
The
we
star
up
card, she's naked.
there? Exactly. Yeah.
You
So
know, yeah.
um
But I mean, I always mention it to people too. But I just couldn't believe that we were still like kind of dealing with that in the. But yeah, so I totally get that. I'm so glad that you were able to move past that challenge to still bring us this deck. I mean, that makes it even more beautiful to have it finished and out in the world.
it,
But
it
like,
does.
I've definitely, okay, so we hit the pandemic, and so you know everything slowed down, and so we just like, it gave me a lot of time to like think and look at things. And so we just, let's see, oh, okay, so it started because nobody was shipping things that were non-essential. So like we
Yes.
couldn't get a lot of things. So I was pregnant at the time and we were going into the summer and I was like super
Oh my
pregnant and I didn't
goodness.
have anything that fit me. Well, they're not shipping clothes. So like I couldn't get anything. So I ended up having to go here locally and like go to a seamstress. And she like made me a summer pregnancy dress that I could like bebop around in the yard in. but but yeah, so we just like really stopped and like looked about like how we order things and like, so we're like, okay, how can we get, bread locally, or how can we make our own bread? I'd never made bread. Like, how can
Yeah.
we get honey locally? Like, so we just and tried to go locally. And what I've found with like the last probably 6 interviews that I've done is that people were like trying to like outsource their printing, and then they ended up having like better experiences like locally with these printers, or like at home because of the pandemic, or because they couldn't go with China, for printers and that kind of stuff over there. So I think that's really beautiful that like people got to like shop at home and support local businesses, and that your local business was, we're like, we accept nudity, that's fine, we're so excited to do this.
Yes. And the printing press that I went through, I now, I talked to the owner by name. Her and I emailed directly. She's every time I have to order new stock, she's always so excited for me. Because she's like, "You sold out again," and she's like, "Yes." So there's this amazing connection that you get from going locally. There's this amazing respect of your art that you get as well, because it's not just like, well, let's stack it up and print it out and send it out, right? You really get, we had made, I might be exaggerating, but maybe like 20 emails back and forth of just making sure I wanted everything. They even printed proofs for me in like different types of cards. We even tried like a plastic option at one point. They totally printed a proof for me. And anytime I was like, oh, I don't know, can we change this little thing? They were totally willing to. It was just a magical experience to go local, to have that relationship. It was so wonderful.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, any small time independent deck creator who's, getting the art out there and getting ready to do it, just start looking local. I really think you'll be so happy with it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I couldn't be happier with my product, honestly. And just I feel so grateful. The reviews that the people who buy my decks leave on my Etsy are always so shining and wonderful. I'm like waiting. Every time a review pops up, I'm like, all right, today's the 1-star review, isn't it? Like, I'm so when's it coming down the pipeline? And it's funny you mentioned the pandemic, because I've even had just horrific shipping issues. I mean,
Yeah.
and decks have gotten lost.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's not my fault. It's not the
No.
person who bought it's fault, and I don't even really blame like the post office, because I'm like,
Yeah.
we're all just trying to get by 1 inch at a time at this point. So I anytime anybody reaches out to me, I always, connect with them directly. I offer a couple different options. I work with them. I'm more than happy to send out a new deck. Because honestly, I didn't make this deck to make a profit. The fact that I'm selling it is really nice. It's wonderful that I get to share it. I'm in it for the experience of my craft.
Yeah.
Of sharing that, of connecting with that, and giving that to other people to connect with. I think it's so important.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. And so I actually just hit my 100 decks sold milestone the other day. I know.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's such a little number, but I was just like, I did
that's amazing.
Yeah. And I have seen a couple like I So I don't do social media except for my professional Instagram. I do have like a Facebook and stuff, but when the pandemic started, I actually made a personal choice to get off of social media as much as possible. So I rarely check my Facebook. I keep up my professional Instagram, but I limit myself.
Yeah.
And then, but Reddit is a weakness of mine. I love Reddit. Oh my goodness. So I'm a part of some tarot Reddits, and I've seen my deck pop up a couple of times on like our tarot, and it's such a like thrilling moment. And honestly, I think I maybe inflated a little bit more than it actually is, but I kind of like spend the rest of the day like, I'm a celebrity. I'm super great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. You're like, I'm Beyonce now. It's nice to meet you.
Yes. Everybody can bow down now. I'm fantastic.
No, for sure. I mean, and it should be celebrated. That's so, yeah, this is what I love about indie creators and, you know, getting those things out there and celebrating those people. There's so much beautiful connection and energy. And I mean, I feel like that's what witchcraft is at its core, is about connection to other people and to yourself and the earth. And yeah, and so like, so it came in the beautiful bag, which is absolutely gorgeous. So it came in the big, gorgeous bag. But so I opened it and I was like, Chase, and like it came from a witch. There's no plastic in here whatsoever. I mean, this is perfect. This came from a green witch, and I absolutely love it. Like that's.
I know. I'm such a God. I'm like relentless sometimes about. I'm like, can we do this without plastic? Can we recycle this? Because I really do feel like I would never want my art to negatively impact the world that we live in. And I didn't want to shrink wrap it, you know. I didn't want and there's no shame in doing that too if people do decide to do that, but as a personal choice, I was like, paper all the way. Like, let's do the card stuff, let's do the paper. And honestly, the bag was partially an environmental decision, and then also because I personally, I never keep the boxes of any of the decks that I've ever gotten in my whole life. It's always goes directly into a like some sort of weird, like I have a pistachio bag that I keep my decks in.
That's amazing.
Right. So it immediately goes into a bag every time. And I know so many other witches who do that. And I was like, that's the perfect solution. You know, then somebody doesn't have to go hunt down their bag. It comes with one.
Yeah.
And, you know, I highly encourage to sew a patch on the bag, put pins on the bag. You know, I chose a blank bag because I really want every witch to make it their.
Make it weird. Yeah.
Make it weird. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, I keep my boxes just because I buy and sell and trade decks back and forth. But like I take all of my cards, I have like great big dressers over here, and I have like dividers. So I store all the cards just open. So they're like easy access. I can get to them because I use them a lot. But then I store all the boxes. And so that was kind of our pandemic thing also, was like going local, but then also trying to go zero waste and not bringing in any plastic. And it really made me realize that the two places that we had the most plastic, aside from the fridge, but was my makeup and then my cards. And it like wasn't like the motorcycle parts for my husband, and it wasn't our gardening stuff. It was like the cards and the makeup. And so that was a huge eye opener. And so I've gotten to where I noticed that like some of them come like the outside box is in plastic, and then you open the box, then you get inside, and then they're shrink wrapped in plastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't ever shame anyone for that. It's just I try to do my little part of like not bringing in so much plastic. So I always really appreciate when people go the extra step and, you know, use paper or use bags or those kind of things. Like, yeah, I just really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, we did something similar, and that's totally what we found. It was, you know, it was really makeup. I was so surprised when I was really looking through my makeup, and I was like, okay, well, this is plastic, and this is plastic, and this is plastic. And you're not really supposed to like use makeup for like a long period of time, but sometimes you buy like a big eyeshadow palette and you're like, I'll never go through this. And so I've definitely tried to balance it a little bit. I don't know if you've tried this too, of like, okay, so I'm only ever going to buy like one eyeshadow palette at a time, and like work my way through that. Or I'm gonna try to find a lot more like places who use like recycled boxes, stuff like that, which is always difficult because then there's like the gifts that come in. You know, like Christmas, my mother-in-law bought me this amazing a celebrity YouTuber who I actually don't endorse and don't support, but I did get their eyeshadow palette for Christmas, and it's a very expensive, nice, beautiful eyeshadow palette. It was really, I don't usually buy myself like something that extravagant, but it was really nice and wonderful. And then I was like, all right, no more eyeshadow palettes for the rest of the year. Like, this is it. But yeah, I was really surprised when I found that. And then, you know, we definitely leaned on shipping, like Amazon and stuff, to have things come in during the beginning of the pandemic too. And we would be like, okay, but this is coming in plastic. Like there's a box, but then there's like plastic bubble wrap. And so then we started doing things like we found an amazing grocery delivery app that's called Thrive Market.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, everything. Their packing material is paper. It's all paper. They send some things that are like, because you can get like shampoo and stuff, and they send them in these plastic bags that are pretty sturdy, and we'll just rinse out the bags and reuse them.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. And then things like I now also try to go more towards like, if I'm going to get something for myself, I'm going to go through Etsy. I'm not going to go through Amazon. You know, if I'm going to, my husband with computer parts, like if he's going to order a computer part, we're going to try to go maybe an independent seller, or maybe even go directly through the like the manufacturer themselves. Because I feel like shopping local, reduce, reuse, recycle is one of the most important things that we can do during this time.
That's exactly what we've been trying to do. That's so crazy. Like we just need to move in together, be neighbors. But like I think I probably have, maybe I don't have it here. I kind of get ready in this area too, so I thought that I had my, maybe I don't, but anyways, but what I found with my makeup routine is that all of the witchcraft companies are the ones that have like, they come in tin, or they have like wooden palettes, you know, like that kind of stuff. They come without any plastic. So I've switched all over, and I quit wearing foundation because what I found with like the first switch, then you have to kind of find, it's kind of limiting. I mean, it's kind of hard when you first start, because it's like finding the company, and then if they have your shade, and then, you know, like these kind of things. So it kind of just like gets smaller and smaller as you try to do this. But yeah, it is, once you get on board and kind of find these, you know, other connections, these other stores that you've never used before. I mean, yeah, it gets easier, but it is a little intimidating, like when you first start.
Yeah, it is. And I love that, by the way. I'm totally going to have to explore like the witch makeup world. I can't believe I haven't explored that yet. I love that. As long as there's black eyeliner, I'm good.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, me too.
If I can do my wing, my look is complete. But yeah, it's crazy. And you know, you mentioned that you were doing like making bread and stuff like that, and I absolutely went down that same journey of discovering baking, and it's ended up being like just a real passion of mine, something I really, really love. We've been trying to find we've always been big like campers and explorers, and traveling is a huge thing for us. And now it's all about like, okay, how do we figure out how to travel without stopping into gas station restrooms? Like, how do we figure out how to find a place out in the wilderness that people haven't been in a while?
Yeah.
Which actually led to us accidentally rock climbing last weekend.
Oh my gosh.
We were just driving and we stopped on the side of the road to see this beautiful scenery, and we're like, oh, there's this little trail down this canyon, and it was like just a slope. I mean, directly downhill slope, and led to this gorgeous creek in the bottom. And then getting back up was so hard. I'm like, you know, I'm a curvy woman. I do not claim to be like this like super fit in shape person. And so I died a little bit. He was left in that creek.
Oh my gosh, that would be me.
All right. There was a moment where we were about halfway up and I was like, okay, I live here now. This is
I instantly regret my decision.
I'll see you guys later. Which funny enough, every time I would stop, I would like look over, and because we're like on the side of this canyon, there would be these gorgeous like rock formations that would be like right next to your face, and I would just be like, oh look, there's quartz, oh look, there's iron. And
oh my gosh,
that was my favorite part of it, because I have a crystal obsession, a bad one.
Yeah. You're not a real witch unless you can appreciate a good rock. Like,
I know. And my favorites are the ones that I've just found. And it's not even like it's like a special one, right? I've never found like a smoky quartz out in the wilderness, but I have found like little pieces of quartz or little pieces of iron or copper that you find out in the wilderness. And I just, those are the ones I'm like, oh, I love it because I found it and it's mine. Maybe I shouldn't be picking those up and putting them in my pocket while I'm hiking around, but I'm doing it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Just the other day, I was doing something and my husband came in and he was like, I'd asked him to get some things for me. And so he brought me a box of like sticks and leaves and pine cones. Cause like, that's what I needed. But yeah,
exactly. I actually just made, my birthday was not too long ago. And so for my birthday, we social distance went to a craft store. And I ended up, when I say I collect dead things, I literally collect the moths and cicadas that I find outside. I even have I have a coyote skull that's processing in my backyard right now.
That's amazing.
My mom's best friend actually found it for me, and it was all kind of gooey. And so I was like, okay, well, how do I process this without I didn't really want to boil all the chemicals that it takes to process bones. So I was like, oh, I'll bury it.
There you
so
go.
It's buried in the backyard, and I'll dig it up probably in the summer, and then the bugs will have had their way with it, and then I'll clean it, and it'll be great.
That's amazing.
Right, but I ended up creating these amazing shadow boxes with like moss that I had found, and some moths and cicadas and some like little quartz crystals. Because I've always wanted those. I always see people who make amazing like vulture culture art. And I want to buy it so bad. And I never have the money when
they're like $400.
Yes, exactly. So I just made my own and I was so happy about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like that's witchcraft right there. I mean,
right?
That's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've babbled too much. Let me look at my questions.
Okay. No, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
I love it.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I guess before we go, what advice do you have? Any either witchcraft advice or tarot advice? Just for anyone. I think that what's so beautiful is like you just mentioned a little bit, but that's also my journey with trauma, or with tarot, is around trauma. So like trauma and tarot for people and their journey, and like just how healing it's been. And so then you're also like creating something. So I mean, that's even a deeper connection than just regular, reading tarot and that kind of stuff. But yeah, do you have any advice for people, either witchcraft or tarot, or for deck creators or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give a piece of advice for the tarot, for the deck creator, and I'll give a piece of advice for the witchcraft. So when it comes to, if you are creating a deck, you will feel discouraged through multiple points of the process. You'll want to force yourself, you'll want to push yourself to do that next card. And the biggest lesson that I learned through that whole process is to not. If you don't have the inspiration, take the couple of days, recenter yourself, go find some inspiration, whatever it may be, but don't force it. Because I guarantee you, the card will come. The next card will come. You'll be messing around with tarot on your own, or you'll be out in the wilderness, or you'll be playing a video game, and it'll finally like click for you. But don't just take that time, just let yourself have that break. So important, especially as an artist, to just go, okay, I have no inspiration right now. That's okay.
Yeah.
And then with witchcraft, it's not a destination, it's a journey. Be my biggest thing. Remember to take the time to learn, read about it, explore it, ask the advice of others, take the time for it. Everybody is welcome in the community, and everybody is welcome to make it with their own of what it is. And the more that you learn, the more that you take the time, whether you decide to jump in right away, or to do the a year and a day study that some people talk about when it comes to witchcraft, it's all about your connection with it, and it's all about your journey. And some people will try to tell you how to do it, and they're not always right, but they are at the same time. They'll be right for themselves, but they might not be right for you. So take the advice, listen to it, and then take the time to learn for yourself. Form your own opinion, form your own processes. It's so important for that journey.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, you're such a beautiful human. I thank you so much for joining us. You guys, I will put all the links down below so that you can follow Hannah and see her art. Also, I'll put a link so you can get this deck because you need it, let's be honest. And yeah, we will see you guys back for another video. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I have to say, I am such a huge fan of your YouTube channel. So thank you so much for bringing me on.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. All right, guys, we will see you back for another video. Bye.